Welcome back, brothers and sisters, to the Church of Doom. If you are new here, my name is Landon Father Doomgus, and this is a channel for all things world building. If you are into RPGs, if you're into fiction reading, if you're just building your own world just for the hell of it, maybe you do solo RPGing, you're doing skirmish wargaming, narrative wargaming, whatever, this is the channel for you. And we're going to talk about all sorts of cool things that might inspire you with some ideas to take to your table or your next game. So, we are going to do three things today. I think that's the structure I'm going to sort of set for all future sermons. I think we did this last time and it worked pretty well. I might have even already said this, but we will begin with hobby updates every week. What have I been working on? What are some cool things that I've learned? What do I just want to share? Then we'll get into our main segment or the main sermon, some juicy topic that I've picked. This week, it was some of my just favorite hobby memories. Just looking back, what are the things that just jumped to mind that I loved from childhood to now at the ripe age of 30 that make my hobbies just the thing that I love. And then finally, we'll end with a random table that I've put together. So with that being said, brothers and sisters, let us pray. What have I been up to this week? What are my hobby church updates? Well, as you guys know, if you watched last week's sermon, one of my goals for 2026 is to read. I want to read at least 24 books, 2 a month if I can. I should be able to do that pretty easily, I think. And the first one was The Port of Peril. That's what I'm starting with. It is by Otis Adelbert Klein, and it is about King Grandin of Venus, who has to go rescue his queen, who is captured by these pirates. Now, it's set on Venus, and it has like some sci-fi-ness to it. There's like weird sort of like alien horses, and their guns shoot crystals and things, but it's also very pulpy, very grounded, down to earth. He's not flying around in a spaceship. There are just normal ships that are sailing on the seas as he's trying to rescue his queen. And there's like, well, I'll just share a couple of the things that have really stood out to me so far that I've liked. One of the biggest ones was at one point, the pirates are sailing past this island where sometimes they'll stop and rest at to get water and supplies on their way back to their secret lair. And on this island, there is a tribe of toad folk, of like frog people, who there's two cool things about them. One is they have like a certain poison or a gland on them that when they bite or if they claw anybody, those people, even if they survive, get really, really sick and almost always die. So the pirates are really hesitant to go onto the island because of that. But if you drink their blood, if you drink the frog people's blood as soon as, or like within an hour basically of getting bit or clawed, then you'll be okay. I thought that's a fun little cool detail, especially if you're doing like a jungle adventure. You have like some spotted frog people. Their poison on their skin is super, super deadly, but if you can kill one, then their blood will save you from imminent death. Very cool. And then the other thing I liked about him was they worship this giant snake. When I say giant, I mean like giant in the context of like an old fantasy pulp novel, not like Purple Worm giant, but a really, really, really big snake that could eat someone in like one bite. It just sleeps up in this cave that overlooks the frog people's village. More of a city, I guess, but they worship it as a god, and they leave human sacrifices for it. Anytime it wakes up, they have like these 4 poles that line the trail that it would follow down to their city, and they'll attach people to it. And then if it eats one and is still hungry, it'll eat a second, and if it's still hungry, he'll eat a third. And all the frog people are like, well, and like the frog people have like captured enslaved pirates who the queen ends up sort of being thrown in with as she's waiting her fate, and they end up telling her, oh yeah, like he's never hungry enough that he eats a fourth, and if he does and he's still hungry, like, oh, then we're all screwed. Which of course then King Grandin uses that to his advantage and ends up like, I don't remember how he does it. I don't know if he like kills the fourth. How did he do it? I think what all he did was he just shot the snake. He just had his like gunner, his ship gunner is like accompanying him on the adventure to save his queen. He's just like, shoot it in the face, and they shoot it, and then it attacks the frog boat. But the main thing I thought was cool, like, oh, they just worship a giant snake as if it were a god, and they leave sacrifices for it. Very, very cool. Other things that stood out in this book that I liked was he has to end up teaming up with one of the pirates who, at the beginning of the novel, this pirate sort of like defects and like is trying to save the queen on his own, and you're sort of like, this is weird. Like, why is he rescuing her? Like, I don't get it. What's in it for him? But then later, at like about halfway through the book, you learn, oh, he's part of this like secret faction within the pirate city that wants to overthrow the current ruler of the pirates, because they're all pretty bad people. They're pirates, and they're capturing and trading slaves, but he wants to overthrow the king. And when Grandin shows up in the city, they have to like team up together and I haven't gotten to like if what they exactly do together, but the pirate is helping Grandin like sneak through the city and actually takes him to his secret order, and they sort of welcome him in as one of their members. They're like, oh, we would love to have a king as part of us, that you will surely help us overthrow our king. I just thought that was cool, of like, and Grandin knows that this dude tried to like rescue his wife, but he has to team up with them anyways. It's just kind of a cool dynamic, very interesting, a lot of tension there. And the other thing that I've really liked about this book is really random. It's just kind of a fun little world building nugget, especially when it comes to like building factions. And that is, the pirates in this book are all addicted to this, I can't remember what they call it. It's some kind of silly sci-fi name, but it's a sort of like chewing tobacco type thing. It's like a seed pod or whatever. And they are like, all of them, every hour of the day they're awake, are chewing this and spitting it all over the place. And so at points in the book, Grandin will, as they're like trying to, at the beginning of the book, they're trying to find the ship. They're sailing out and like, where did they go? Where did they go? And they find a couple of these pods drifting in the water. They're like, oh, we must be on the right track. And then at another point, they find, I think, like a trail of spit that one of them left, because it's this really bright red tobacco type spit. And I just thought, oh, what a fun little way to have clues be like a breadcrumb trail. But it's like not a literal blood trail, like, oh, they were injured or anything like super obvious. It's just like this chewing tobacco. I don't know. I just thought that was a really fun, clever little thing to include as a trait for the pirates. Things that are a little about the book. I mean, it was written, this copy was copyrighted in 1932. So it does reference to Grandin and the gunner as the white men, which every time I read that, I'm like, oh boy. And the pirates, they are like alien-ish. Like, they have no eyelids, or like no eyelashes. They have no teeth. They're like gumless mouths. They have kind of like long, lanky arms. They're really like kind of short and squat. And they're like bright yellow. Like, their skin is bright yellow. But it does refer to them. The book just has a habit of referring to people's skin color a lot. And that's always just kind of like, okay. Well, you haven't said anything outright horrible, but there are undertones that I'm a little worried about here. But it's still a really fun, cool old pulp fantasy novel, and I just wanted to read it. But that is one thing that you're like, ugh. And then the other thing is, of course, it is about a queen who's being kidnapped and the king going to save her. But two things on that. One, as a dude, it is just sort of like fun to read, like this fantasy of like, I'm gonna go save my wife. Like, that's cool. And he's just like cutting his way through enemies. You're like, yeah, hell yeah. Like, that's cool. And she also is not like helpless. She's not a damsel in distress. Like, one of her, like, the main thing she does that I love is, well, the book really emphasizes like nobility and like even the pirates sort of respect her as a queen and treat her really well. And so, and like have like formal dinners with her. But her main goal is to just basically make the pirate king like feel as awful about himself as she can. Like, anybody she talks to, she's hurling insults at. She's pointing out their flaws. She's really like putting herself up there as just like, I am smarter and more eloquent and more noble than you could ever hope to be. And I'm gonna make sure you know that. And then there are a few other points in the book where like she tries to escape. She's always trying to escape. Of course, it never works because Grandin has to come get her. But it is nice that she's just not like in hysterics all the time. In fact, she's like really never been, which is cool. So that's one of my main hobby updates going on right now. I am halfway through my first book of 2026. Update number 2, I am continuing my workshop organization. A few things you can sort of see just in the frame that are different from last time is I added actually, let me grab one. I'll show you. I picked up from Amazon like 12 of these adjustable shelves, which are awesome because these shelves down in this basement are not made to hold like miniatures. They're not made to hold small little things. They're meant to hold like big buckets of paint and cleaner and household stuff. But so I felt like, when I put one of these, like a little mini like this, if you can kind of see right here on the corner, there's so much wasted space. So I threw a bunch of these on and effectively doubled my storage space on every shelf, which has been going really, really well. Another little hack if you're kind of working on your own storage space is for my miniatures, all my bits. I do the totally not panicking method of kit bashing where you kind of just have everything thrown into one big bin and you mix it all around. Ooh, I believe I have a coffee delivery. Yay! Yeah, thanks, love. But you just throw everything into one big bin. Heads, torsos, guns, everything. And you just pull from it and try and use things in really creative ways. Thank you so much. Cheers, everybody. But I have so many bits. And I like the bin that I had, it was just like getting so full that I had to like scrape to the bottom to find what I was looking for. And I just felt like I was having a lot of things just kind of get lost and not used. So I found that like these tin foil cooking trays, or they're not even really, I guess you do cook in them, but they're also just like you put the food in it and the candles burn underneath it and it just keeps it warm. These are perfect and super, super cheap storage organizers for bins. Because then like you can just kind of have a thin layer, easy to push them and move them around. And I've got 8 of them on these double stacked shelves. But then you also, if you wanted to, if you didn't have like shelves to stack individual ones on, they just stack on top of each other really nicely. And they're cheap. Like if one tears or if one breaks or whatever, or if you want to add another one, like I have a whole giant, I had a big container for a package of them. I bet this thing cost like just a couple dollars. So that was another great little tip that I wanted to pass on to you all. And other than that, it's been going slower than I expected. But I had so much just like junk and things that had found its way onto the shelves. I'm like, I'm never, ever, ever going to use this. So I've just been finding ways to get rid of stuff or donate things. And also, I've been trying to take a lot of time to figure out how can I organize this so that the things that I actually need to use often are within reach. Because I realize like my paints are in this like little red toolbox, like rolling toolbox thing under my workbench. It's like right here within arm's reach, but it's under the table and they're in shelves. And because I just don't see my paints very often, I think that's part of why I don't paint as often as I kit bash, because all of my bits and glue and things are right here. So I can do it all the time. But I have to remember to like, oh, yep, let's get the paints out, open it up, bring them all out, get it all set up. But if I just had them like right here, a little row of the paints that I use most often, I think I'd be able to actually get a lot more painting done. So that's another little freebie there at the end. But yeah, what else? I got 2 other little hobby updates. Oh, this was a fun one. This was in the title of the stream. Oracle die. So Sly Flourish, author of The Lazy Dungeon Master, I'm signed up to his newsletter. And in his most recent one, he mentioned using an Oracle die to help quickly inspire the details of basically any given location or even scenario in the moment when you're running a session. And really how it works, it's as simple as you might take a D20, and when the players arrive at a location, let's say it's just a watchtower, just a random watchtower out in the woods. You're doing an overland travel encounter. You roll that D20, and you could kind of do it either way here, but like you could do it where the higher the roll, the more deadly and severe whatever is in this location is, and the lower you roll, the safer it is. So if you roll a 1, like, oh, great. Not only is there no enemies here, but also you find a stockpile of food and maybe even like a stash of weapons or like a potion. Like an adventurer had already been through this tower and they stashed some stuff here and you find it. Or it's like waiting for you in there, right? And if you roll a 20, it's like, oh, this seemingly abandoned watchtower is actually a den for a young dragon, and they like are descending from the skies to come, take a rest as you're walking up to it. And I don't know how I never really thought to do that, but I really, really like it because, as I mentioned last week, I've got some GM burnout going on. I just am feeling it's hard to get to the table, and I don't know. I think part of it is probably over prepping, where I want to have like every location that I think the players might go to. I want to have a couple notes about it and some ideas of what could happen there and some features. And I have to remember that I am actually pretty good at coming up with those sorts of things in the moment. I do think I've been doing this long enough that I can improv something cool in the moment. But I get like it is hard to do that when you have nothing to go off of. And even something as simple as a 1 to 20 number scale or a range to go off of, I think would be so useful for me. Because if I roll and I get that 18 or I roll a 10, something right in the middle, even though I have nothing else, there's not even a keyword. It's not even like a list of like, mud, dragon, ambush, gold, right? Like just some keywords to go off of. Even if I didn't have that, that number alone alleviates some of the hardest part of what I think it requires of the brain to get an idea going, like to just get it starting, right? It's the jumper cables. That's what it is. That Oracle die roll is the jumper cables to get your brain going. Oh, okay, we have a heading. The gears are moving, and we sort of know which way to go. It's going to be either really deadly, or it's going to be really easy, or something sort of in the middle. Good. We can rock this. And also, because you have the context as the GM, you have the context of like what's going on in this general area, what's going on in the adventure. So that number combined with what you already know in your head, the ideas you already have sort of bouncing around in there, I think will just produce like really cool, quick, easy things for you. And I'm going to certainly be trying this when I get back to the table, probably next month, and see if I can just cut back on my session prep a lot. I'm even wondering, like, could I just run a whole session where I have like no prep? Like I have like my minis prep, because I run it online with Owlbear Rodeo. So I've got my digital minis ready. I've got like my overworld map. But what kind of I don't have a lot of fun with is like prepping individual location maps, because I'm like, I've got to think of like the feature for it and what are they going to fight there? And it just would be a lot more fun, I think, to just be like, all right, in a little whiteboard area of the Owlbear Rodeo, just roll a d20 and then sketch something out to just make the encounter cool and fun in the moment, and even ask for player input. That's something I've done a few sessions, or I've done a few times in my Daggerheart campaign, and I haven't done it in a little while, that I should do again. It's like, I roll that number, I have a few ideas to go off of, and then I ask my players, hey, give me something, give me a detail, give me a feature, an environmental feature to incorporate into this map, and then sketch it out super, super fast with the draw tool, and bam, get into the encounter. So that's something I want to try out. So take that idea and run with it. Also, if you haven't checked out Sly Flourish, go check him out, because he's got lots of cool ideas. Very last little hobby update. Mega Dungeons. I have never ran a Mega Dungeon. I haven't even really ever ran like a traditional large dungeon in a while, but I've seen some art recently that had me really interested in doing a Mega Dungeon, and I will actually show that right now to y'all. Let me switch the screen over. There it is. So I came across this on Pinterest, and it's something about, like, I've seen lots of side profile dungeon maps before, and I don't know. I think I kind of know why I love this one. And let me zoom in a little bit. Just we'll sort of go through it. Like over here, this is the Goldbeard Fortress, and in the top right, I wish you could see where my mouse is pointing. But in the top right of the map, you've got the entry ruins, and then there's just this huge shaft that goes all the way down to like basically the very bottom of this mega dungeon. But it's got all these different branching off paths, and certain areas like it's flooded at the bottom. But you've got the Great Hall, you've got the little fountain area that goes down into a section of dwarf barracks, and there's like, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's nine of these barracks rooms. And what I like about it is that these barracks rooms aren't, they like, each room isn't fantastically different. There isn't an encounter prep for every single one of them, or you don't have to think about a feature for every single one of them. It's just a square on this gridded piece of paper with a couple little doors and some stairs that reflect, oh yeah, dwarves live in this area. And then if your players were to move into this room, in the moment you can come up with, using that table as oracle die, or asking for some player input, or just your own inspiration based off what's been happening in the session, you can populate these rooms with cool things. Now, and so that kind of applies to the whole map, right? You get down here into the treasure rooms. There's 3 treasure rooms with nothing really specific in them. You get to come up with that. The mine shafts are just these little rectangle rooms that go across the map. You've got these branching off areas where the old ant keg lairs or the orc pits have kind of like blended into the dungeon the dwarves hold to make it a proper mega dungeon. Like, all of that is super, super cool. And I love the history that it tells you with these little drawings that this person did of like the dead spider remains, and like over here in the dwarf kingdom again, like a lich has moved in, so they've drawn like a little lich throne and some skulls all over the place. They have a little note here that there's like cave art, the equivalent of like cave art across a lot of the keep that shows gnolls fighting ant-men. I'm like, oh, what a cool way to convey the history of this dungeon to your players, to have old cave art of the battle that took place in this dungeon between like kind of not prehistoric, but like the ancient peoples of the world, the Ant-Men and the Knoll folk. And that's how old this dungeon is. It's been here for so long that civilizations have risen and fallen within it. I think that's so cool. But oh my god, I forgot like the main thing that I was going to say that I really liked about it. But maybe I just said it. Maybe I implied like the little sketching and drawing I think is really cool. But no, I remember what it was. What I really like about this is it kind of goes into what I was saying, where each room isn't like super specifically detailed with what's in it. It is like more of a set piece. It's you can have your little player pawns. If I were to just upload this into Owlbear Rodeo, I can have my little players' digital minis, and when I move them into a room, we're not having to get so focused on where exactly are you in this room. Rather, it's just, hey, like you can look at this map and have a general idea of like, yep, this is the room we're in. If we go to the west, that's what's going to be that direction. If we go to the east, that's direction. I can see we've already explored and what's sort of been behind us, and I can drop a little enemy mini into that room and just kind of rough position the players to have like a quick combat, and then resolve it fast and move on to the next room. Like I just like that a lot. I think that's something that I've been not enjoying about my D&D sessions is any combat I introduce, even if I go into it with the intention of having it go quick, it takes too long. And I think it's because I'm prepping my maps as like a stage piece, or not stage piece, because that's sort of what I described this map as. It's like I almost am prepping them like it was for a skirmish war game. Like, we are going to be at this map for a while because look at how cool and detailed it is. Whereas if it was something like this, you don't want to be here too long because it would get a little boring and stale. You want those encounters to be punchy and quick and fast, and then you can just keep exploring and keep moving along. So even though I have a campaign going on right now that doesn't have a mega dungeon, I'm going to see if there's a way to translate this over to like an overland map. I don't really know how to do that exactly yet, but that's something I'm thinking about, something I really want to do. And hey, maybe like after this campaign, maybe I'll want to do a mega dungeon campaign, or maybe I'll just want to do this as like a solo RPG. I think that could be fun. Just like a little journaling exercise where I have this my one character in my head who's going room to room through this dungeon, and I'm sort of just drawing it out as I go and thinking about the history, just as a purely solo world building exercise. I think that could be cool. Okay, so that is it for my hobby updates. I've been reading, I've been organizing, I have been checking out Sly Flourish's blog, getting that Oracle idea, and I've just had Mega Dungeons on the mind. We'll come back to Mega Dungeons towards the end of today's sermon when I've got a list of Mega Dungeon Architect ideas for you to inspire future dungeons. But now, let's get into our main segment, my 1d6 core hobby memories. Things that when I think back on my life of miniature painting and RPGs and just creative stuff, what jumps to mind? Number one, my favorite hobby moments include crafting my first ever piece of terrain with my dad. And this was when I was probably around 9. I wish I had a picture of this, but wasn't able to track one down. But I have pictures of some of the other stuff. Well, some of the other things I can show you. But this first piece of terrain I built, I was probably 9 years old. We were living in Arizona, and this was probably around the time that either The Two Towers or Return of the King had come out. And I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings as a kid. And I got into the miniature painting, or the miniature games. I would collect and paint all the miniatures. I didn't really play the game because I was just too young. I didn't get it. But I loved moving my little miniatures around. And so my dad helped me build a section of Gondorian Wall. And it wasn't like Minas Tirith's front gates. It was just kind of like, if you guys ever played the Lord of the Rings video game where it was like, was it the Return of the King? I think it was just the Return of the King video game. If you remember this is also probably a core memory for me. But like the menu would like load into like a Gondorian hall, and there were like these little pictures like etched into the wall, and you would move your way up the story path, up this huge wall from the very beginning of the movie where it was like the end of Helm's Deep, and you played Gandalf, and you like came in and fought off the Uruk-hai, and then you progressed through the story of the Return of the King until you were fighting it outside the Black Gate. And I think you even fought like Gollum as Sam and Frodo at the very end of the game. Does anybody else remember this game? I'm sure you've played it. Anyways, there's a level in that. I was like, why did I bring this up? Oh yeah, there's a level in that game where you're Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and you're like going to Gondor. You're trying to get to Minas Tirith, but you have to pass through this like outpost gate, this section of ruined wall with a gate, and you fight a troll and a bunch of orcs there. If you remember that level, then that wall, imagine that. That is what my dad helped me build. And we built it out of just like basically, I think it was just like poster board, nothing else. Maybe some styrofoam for like the stairs, but it was a wall, a section of wall, a gatehouse, and a wall. And the doors could open when there's like little pieces of tape on the back sides of the door so they could swing open. And I painted like the tree of Gondor on the gate, on the gate, and it did not look very good, but like it didn't matter because I was just a kid. And then I just remember playing with this for hours with my little minis, setting up my Gondorian archers along the wall, setting up all of the soldiers and the spearmen behind the gate. And I have, oh my gosh, this is bringing back such vivid memories of replaying the scene in my head of Gandalf standing at the gates with all the Minas Tirith soldiers and the doors slamming open and the trolls come charging in and they're just like, oh my God, like we're all gonna die. I remember playing that scene out in my head so many times, putting all my orcs on one side and all the Gondorian soldiers on the other and having them meet. Oh, it was so much fun. That's like burned into my memory. One of my first like true hobby projects, I think. Core memory number two was, this one's called Grimdark Future. First one was called Young Lord, just because I always do my blog and all my lists and everything is random table style with a little title. So Grimdark Future. My favorite hobby moments include splitting the Warhammer 40k Assault on Black Reach 5th edition starter box with a friend. And this was not shortly, but this was when I was probably in like middle school. Because I remember I was in middle school because I had to get driven to the Hidden Keep, the first game store I ever went to in Utah. The owner was such a dick. He sucked. But I split the 5th edition starter box with a friend, and I remember painting up I took the Space Marines, of course, gonna take the Space Marines, and I painted them up as, I think in the beginning, it was sort of like I didn't do Ultramarines, and I didn't know what a Blood Angel was at that point, but I remember painting them up like red. But I also remember stripping and repainting this force of Space Marines at least 3 times. I repainted things so many times. And oh, here also I have a picture of this starter box. If you like, what the hell are we even talking about? This box, and like I want to buy this again just to have it. I don't even know. Like I would want to paint it all up too. I'd want to paint the orcs and the Space Marines. Oh my gosh, and the scatter templates. If any of you play 40k, like, and you've been around from 5th edition, this should be bringing back some memories. But oh, this was so cool. This blew my mind as a kid because all up to this point, I was still painting and sort of trying to play the Lord of the Rings game. And my friend, I remember that I made at this game store, he played a few games of the Lord of the Rings game with me, but eventually he's like, yeah, this game's kind of lame. You should check out 40k. And I was like, but I love Lord of the Rings and the movies. And then as soon as we played one game of this, I'm like, all right, this is pretty freaking cool. So I tried this out. But this is also reminding me that when I would paint as a kid, and even as a teenager, I would paint every piece individually. So as the starter box, that wasn't a big deal because the Marines, can I zoom in? I mean, the quality's not going to be great. But like you can sort of see in the bottom left, the Marines, there's like the body, and then their gun is like right up against their chest. So those guys were like 3 parts: the backpack, the torso, the body, and then the gun. But I would paint each piece individually, and I'd prime and paint them individually, which carried over to when I started buying like blister boxes or like a box of 10 Marines, and they were multi-pose, and the arms were separate. They don't really make them they don't make them like this anymore, but a few editions ago, Space Marines would have like the head and the body, but the body was a front and a back part, and they would glue together. Then there was a left and the right arm, and then the gun, and the legs, and there was just a lot of pieces, and like purity seals, all of that, different pieces. I don't know why I did this, but I painted every single piece individually, and it took forever. Now, finally, I'm like, screw that. Like, I'll paint, this guy. This is like I don't even know what. Oh, let me switch over so you can see a better view of this guy. This is just like an assassin type character. I sort of was kit bashing, but I'm like, if I were to paint him, hell no, I'm not going to paint all those pieces individually. I'm going to kit bash a big dude, and I'm going to prime him and paint him, and I'm only going to really worry about painting the parts that you see, not every little tiny detail on this gun, including the backside that is going to be pressed up against the body. You're never going to see it. That was so crazy. I don't know why I did that as a kid. So ridiculous. But okay, that's hobby memory number, was that number 2? Yeah, Grimdark Future, getting into Warhammer 40K, and that's just like really changed the trajectory of my hobby entirely, because now so much of what I like to introduce in my RPGs is like Grimdark inspired and very science fantasy-esque. Memory number 3 is the Devil. And if you've watched this channel for a while, you've probably heard me tell this story before, but it's still one of my favorites. And hey, maybe you haven't heard it. So this was this favorite memory of mine was when I introduced Strahd for the very first time in the very first session of my Curse of Strahd campaign. And the way he did it, well, first I'll give you some context, which is the players, when they arrived, they wandered in through the fog, and every character, I had them, the prompt I gave them for how their character would be introduced was, you are running away from something and you run into this fog. And it's like, whatever you're running away from is this fear that's good, or like a sin you've committed that's going to follow you into the world. So that was a cool little thing that I did that I would do again if I ran Curse of Strahd, of like, what horrible thing is following you to haunt you in this realm? But anyways, they all come running through this fog and kind of see each other. They see these like shadowy figures running through the trees with them. They're like, what the hell? Like, what is going on? And then these wolves start chasing them, and they all end up kind of getting brought together, and they got rescued by, and I wish I could remember his name. I was trying to remember it all night and I couldn't. But there's a young ranger. He's like in his teens, like on the cusp of adulthood. He shoots an arrow out of the trees and poof, kills a wolf. And he's like, follow me. And he takes these heroes to this old abandoned watchtower. And he takes them inside, and he starts to kind of tell them like where they are. You're in Barovia. This is the realm of the devil, is how I had the characters refer to Strahd in my campaign. He cooks them up his mom's his favorite dish that his mom makes, rat cabbage stew. He gets them fed with some dinner, and the players are just falling in love with this kid because he rescued him. He was kind of a badass. He killed a bunch of wolves, and he's a kid. Like, what RPG group doesn't fall in love with a kid character when you're like, oh yes, like we get to raise you and we get to be an example for you. And he's like, oh my gosh, you guys are heroes. That's amazing. You probably have an idea of where this is going. Well, after all of this, it's not in the middle of the night, but the sun has set. It's very dark. They're getting ready for bed. They hear a knock at the door. And I already knew in my head, like, this isn't a residence. Like, Strahd could have entered if he wanted to. This is like a ruined tower. Not the same thing as a home. But there's a knock on the door, and the characters look over the edge of the tower, and they see this tall figure in a wolf's fur cloak, and he's holding a basket. And eventually, of course, like, well, what are we going to do? Like, we got to open the door. They open the door, and it is Strahd. And he introduces himself as, and I had a great voice for Strahd that I don't know if can I even do it. Like, I think he said like, good evening, welcome to the realm of Barovia. I have come to welcome you as lord and ruler of this land. And he presents them with a basket of wine and pastries, and they're like not like gross pastries. They're like beautiful, delicious, sugary pastries, because he's a lord. Like, he's being a gracious host. Of course, he would come to this tower and present his newest guests with a welcome gift. And then he asks, more out of formality than anything, like, may I enter? May I come in, please? And what are they going to do? They're like, sure. And I credit to my players. They could have been like, no. But they played into the fiction. They played into the narrative. Like, oh, yeah, sure. All right, come on in. And they bring him up to the tower, and this is where it gets interesting, where the players are sort of wanting to learn what they can from this guy, and they're all really scared because they know who it is. They know this is Strahd, but the characters don't know it, right? But then this young ranger, kind of emboldened by the presence of these heroes, at one point spits in Strahd's face. And that's when Strahd tells the boy, and he's sort of talking to the boy, but he's also kind of talking to the characters when he says this, but he's like, it looks like you need to be taught a lesson. And out come the claws. And the players are like, no! And they're doing everything they can. And my character, credit to them as well, like, for being level 1 characters, they actually put a lot of damage into Strahd, more than I expected. Hey, that's 5e for you, right? But it was inevitable. Like, there was nothing they could do, really. I don't even think they really tried to, like, negotiate their way out of this. They could have done that, possibly. But they, of course, were just like, I'm just going to attack. There was no way they could outrun him. And Strahd picks up Gavril, that was his name. He picks up Gavril by the throat, and he looks at the other characters who are like hacking into him. Like, the paladin has a sword like stabbed through Strahd's stomach, and he just runs his claws through his chest or through Gavril's stomach and throws him down on the table or on the floor, and his blood starts to seep across the tile. And I remember at one point I described, it might have even been after Strahd left, but that the blood began to mix with the broken bottles of wine that Strahd had brought. And I was like, oh, what a fun little detail that was. But then the last thing he said, as he's leaving the tower, he looks back at the characters and he says, "Enjoy the wine," and then flies up into the night sky and disappears. And that was, it's like probably that I think is my top RPG moment I've ever had. Introducing Strahd in that first session in the most dramatic, menacing, sadistic way possible, but at the same time highlighting his status as a lord, and he's come to welcome his guests and he's going to give them a gift. It was so fun. And the players, I mean, Gavril, that was someone that they talked about for the rest of the campaign. And of course they met Gavril's mom when they got to the first town, and it was awesome. It was so cool. Loved it. I would love to get to do that again for a group of players. All right, memory number 5. This is a good one. Well, not a good one. It's a funny one, and it was a bad memory. This will make sense. My favorite hobby moments include Space Truckers. So this was playing in the most agonizingly boring RPG session of my life at Gen Con with a GM who basically wasted 45 minutes of having us wander around this like space trucker ship. We were like characters hauling cargo to I don't even remember where, but we're on the ship and like something sort of woke us up, I guess. But fuck if I know what that was or if we were ever going to find out, because for 45 minutes we wandered around the ship with nothing to do and nothing happening. There were no clues to investigate. There weren't even like space rats to fight. We just kind of wandered, and I kept asking this GM. I was softballing him like questions of I can't remember the specific questions, but just trying to get something to happen. And at like the 45-minute mark, eventually I think like something, for whatever reason, we went to the cargo hold area where all the big, basically like cargo like containers are all stacked, and like I guess something weird was there. But even we get there and we can't fucking figure it out, because every question we ask the GM, his either answer is no, or kind of like a shrug, or just like awkwardly like, nothingness. It was just, couldn't get anything out of him. So it eventually derailed into, it was me, my brother, my dad, and then like 2 or 3 other random dudes who were as bored as we were, but weren't really gonna do anything about it. And it ended up revolving into us like, we were like shooting our guns. I think we like almost were playing laser tag with each other, like running around trying to like make something happen. And as we're getting ready to go to the break, me and my dad and my brother's character were still in the cargo hold. The other dudes had left. And I just decided, I like looked at my dad and my brother, and we kind of gave each other this look of like, we're going to bail, right? And they're like, oh yeah, we're going to bail. And so I hit the airlock and I just jettison us out into space, because we were so bored. Like the laser tag thing lasted for like a minute, and then it got boring, and so we were just so ready to be done. I just send us out into space, and then we go to break and leave. And the guy running it, I mean, I look back on it, I'm like, I kind of feel bad, because he was like awkward, but at the same time I'm like, dude, you wasted 45 minutes of our time, and we paid a lot of money to be at this con, and this is what you prep for us? Nothing? You prepped nothing? Like, yeah, of course we're gonna fucking kill ourselves by shooting us out into space. It's better than being at this table. There's like a 1% part of me that feels a little bad. 99% like, that was hilarious, because I've never been more bored in my life playing an RPG, but in that moment I've never laughed so hard. It was just hilarious of like, well, take this into our own hands. See ya. Poof, out we go. It was hilarious. And I just, even though it sucked, I look back on it and can smile. Another favorite memory. I got 2 more. Number 5, the demon Franklin. So this favorite memory includes meeting I think it's pronounced Glabrezu, the Glabrezu demon called Franklin in one of my dad's earlier campaigns, when our party discovered an iron flask, and eventually learned like, oh, there's a demon in this, and what? We can control it? Like, when we let it out of this flask, we get to tell it what to do, and he can't disobey us. The only caveat is we can't do anything that would cause him to directly harm himself. Oh, well, sweet. We'll take advantage of that. Nothing terrible could possibly ever happen. And of course, a few sessions down the road, I don't remember what we did, but some way we sort of got like, not monkey pod. What's the I don't remember, but like our words got twisted against us, and Franklin's like, "Say what now?" And he gets freed. But here's a picture of Franklin before I keep going on with this story, because he was so cool. There he is. My dad painted that up. He's a really good painter, and you can see. I think he might have kit bashed that part of the face in the middle. I can't remember the mini if it comes this way, because I think it's a Reaper's Bone mini. But when we first saw this, dude, we were like, holy hell. Like, that is terrifying, and we are absolutely going to die. But so we met Franklin in this campaign, and when he got freed, he was going to kill us, but it just so happened that there was another character in the party. It was an NPC. Actually, it was my character's grandmother, who hints had been being dropped for us players of like, she's more than she seems to be. And my character was a tiefling, so it was sort of implied like there's some weird demon devil stuff going on here with grandma. And just as Franklin is about to kill us, her name gets dropped. I don't think she was actually there. I think another character is like, hey, I know so-and-so. I don't remember her name, but I know Disco's grandma. And if you harm a hair on his head, she's going to find out about it and there will be hell to pay. And even Franklin was like, all right, like, I'm not going to mess with her then. But just know, like, you guys are on my shit list. And we survived, like, barely. It was very, very cool. Very, very fun. But what makes it even cooler with this memory, because, like, a bunch of people meet demons. That's nothing special. And a bunch of people almost died of demons. What was cool is then we ended up playing a different campaign that was set, I believe I remember correctly, a couple centuries or so in the past. Maybe not even a few centuries. It might have even it was a couple centuries in the past. And we met Franklin again as a totally new group of characters. We ran into Franklin when we crossed paths with this group of like demon hunting inquisitors who were trying to track down Franklin and imprison him. And if I remember correctly, I think it was sort of implied like, oh, this might have been when he got trapped in the Iron Flask. I'm like 90% sure I'm remembering that correctly, but in this moment on stream I can't. But it was so cool to see Franklin earlier in the campaign, or see him earlier in his life in a totally different part of the world, on a different planet. I believe this was a totally different planet in my dad's setting. And if you guys give me actually 1 second, he emailed me, and this is a spoiler for, well, none of the players in this campaign would be watching this, but my dad emailed me a picture of an even younger and more powerful Franklin that we'll encounter at some point in our current campaign. Let me get that pulled up, because that's just cool to see. Yeah, okay, here we go. So this is Franklin 3.0. And this is, my dad sort of told me, like, this is Franklin in his prime. So you can see his claws are just bigger and meaner and covered in armor. You can see in his chest, like, that skeletal mage is still there, but he's got, like, big lich-like hands, like, getting ready to throw out some terrifying spell. His face is just beefier and looks more snarling, almost lion-like. He's got those big horns. So that's going to be really cool when we encounter him again. Now, all of us at the table, the players were already like, hey, I can't wait till we meet Franklin. So we already knew it was coming. So this isn't like spoiler alert for me, but I don't know when he'll show up. And there was a moment in the campaign where we all, like, I don't remember exactly what was happening, but we were like looking at each other, like, as players, like, oh, is this it? Is this it? Is this when Franklin shows up? But it wasn't, and I'm kind of glad. I'm like, ooh, you're gonna make us wait for it. All right, we'll be patient. But yeah, I just love Franklin. He's such a fun memory, and he's like a villain, but he's not like a BBG level villain. He's just a villain that can kind of show up whenever in any campaign, and it's just been so fun. It's a really cool memory I have with my dad's campaign. And finally, my last memory number 6, also involves my dad. I call this one Flow State. One of my favorite hobby memories includes painting miniatures for hours and hours and hours in my childhood home with my dad while watching old monster movies, old Band of Brothers TV show series, but most importantly, watching the making of the Lord of the Rings documentary that comes on the bonus DVDs and the extended versions of the Lord of the Rings trilogy box set. And I'm sure a lot of you who are watching this have also watched these. You get disc 1 and disc 2 of the movies, and then you get disc 2 of the behind the scenes, like how they did the costume design and the set design and the miniature building and the casting and the script writing and all like that stuff. I watched that more than I ever watched the movies. And I watched the movies a lot, but I just remember That's a huge memory of mine as a kid, of just painting miniatures, be it a Lord of the Rings mini or a 40K mini, and watching this. And as a kid thinking like, oh, I'm going to be a director when I grow up. When I grow up, I'm going to make movies. I'm going to make sets like this. And even if I wanted to, that's not how Hollywood is. And that was never something I seriously pursued. But I'm glad that at the very least, it's kind of carried over into my life in the sense of I still am making really cool stuff and thinking about those movies and that documentary series. And I remember one part that always comes to mind when I think of that little behind the scenes content was watching them make Shelob's Lair and how they figured out a recipe to make the webs, and how they would like melt styrofoam and stretch it out into these goopy webs. Like that's ingrained in my head. But yeah, I've been rewatching that with Calvin, my son, and that's been a lot of fun. Been really enjoying that. So those are my 6 core hobby memories. I'm sure I could make this list a D20 if I wanted to, but those were the ones that just burned into the back of my brain and just jumped immediately to mind when I had to think about it. So I'd be curious to hear from you guys in the comments of this video, which will, a little context, because I forgot to sort of mention this last week. So I'm going to do the stream. I do this so that I have I love doing it in one big take. I really like this way of making, I don't want to say making content. I don't really know what else to say. But this is my favorite way to share my ideas and my excitement for my hobbies with you guys. It's so hard. It was hard before I had a kid, and it's basically impossible now to like sit down and film a video with like a script. It doesn't work for my brain. But sitting down and just going live and almost just kind of needing to improv a presentation for you guys with some pre-written lists, like I love this. This is so fun for me. So I'll do this. Then the live is going to get unlisted. It will be, if you're a patron, which you can be a patron for $3, like it'll be up on Patreon at the moment that this happens. It's up right now, actually, as a post with like these D6 lists that I wrote. All the lists that I share, they're over on a blog post on the Patreon. You can go reference those. But anyways, that will go, the stream will be unlisted. And then a week later, so next Sunday, this will get uploaded as a video to Patreon or to YouTube with like any weird little bits that needed to get edited out. I'm going to try and avoid editing as much as possible because I just don't like it. I don't have a lot of time. But if there's like any weird sections where like the audio goes quiet, like I noticed that at the end of last week's video, the audio just cut out for a couple seconds. I'll clean all that up, re-upload it as a video, and it's up as a podcast on Spotify. So you can go watch those there or listen to it there. But if you're a patron, you get to watch it for that week where it isn't publicly available again. But eventually it all will. So you don't need to become a patron to watch this stuff. It's all going to end up here eventually. But that's why I'm doing the stream, to like get me to get the content to then share with you again down the road. Anyways, I digressed there. Let's get into our final segment here of our hobby sermon before we answer any questions that there might be in the chat. And if you're here watching with us, don't forget, put in the chat, like in parentheses, question, and then your question so that I can find it quickly, and I'll answer those at the very end. But I said we were going to come back to Mega Dungeons, and we're going to do that right now with 1d6 Mega Dungeon architects. That was a list that I brainstormed because I want to write at least 100 random tables this year. That was one that I wrote up and shared on Patreon. So I'm going to share a few of my favorite ideas from that list. We'll make it a D4 for you guys. So this dungeon was built by a Lich's apprentice. It was built by a Lich's sniveling, torture-obsessed apprentice tasked with constructing a place where souls could be prepared for consumption. The dungeon was left in ruins after the Lich discovered the apprentice was plotting to poison them. So I remember in Tomb of Annihilation, that 5e adventure, the Mega Dungeon is like built by Acererak the Lich, and it's where souls are stored to feed his, what do they call it? A tropple? It's like a weird like fetus god thing. He's like growing a god. Anyways, I thought that idea was really cool. Like, oh yeah, I never thought of that. Like, oh, Liches build dungeons to collect souls to eat. So what if this dungeon was built by some Lich's apprentice who could still be really powerful, but not as powerful as the Lich, right? He's like, go build me a thing, and you're so weirdly sadistic and obsessed with torture. Like, I find that the tortured souls are the ones that taste the best. So go build me a place, indulge in your torture fantasies, and I'll just feed off of whatever you do there. That already is a cool concept for a dungeon, I think. Just filled with the most sadistic, terrifying torture chambers possible that your players have to explore through to get to the treasure at the bottom. But then, For all of the ideas I shared on this list, like the end of the idea includes like, why is it in ruins, or why is it abandoned, or why is it a thing that your players could sort of explore now? And I thought, ooh, what if this Lich's apprentice wanted to poison them by poisoning the souls? I don't know how they would do that, but it was just a cool idea. Like, ooh, something about the way they're torturing and preparing these souls would actually have killed or sickened or greatly weakened the Lich, so that the apprentice could have tried to kill them and taken over. And then the Lich found out, came and killed, question mark, the apprentice, and in the process, in that battle, like, ruin left this dungeon just crumbling down on itself, and that's what the players could come explore. Thought that was a cool idea. Another mega dungeon architect could be this one was cool. The dungeon was built by dwarven priests, an order of gemstone worshipping dwarven priests tasked with preserving the earth's most precious gemstones and protecting them from the corrupting light of the surface world. That, I honestly like the idea of the dwarven order a little bit more than the dungeon itself. But this group of dwarves who believe like gemstones are built in the earth, they are of the earth, and they're not meant to be on the surface. These surface dwellers keep coming down here and taking these gemstones and tarnishing them, exposing them to this harsh, eroding sunlight. Like, the surface dwellers believe that the sparkle is what makes the gemstone beautiful, but that's not true. Like, we know the true beauty is found down here in the darkness, where even here in the pitch black, the most brilliant gemstones still emit a bit of light. I don't know, just kind of making that up in the moment. But I just like this idea that these dwarves are like, no, the gemstones are staying here and they're to be worshipped. And they built this dungeon around their mine or something to keep them here. But then the reason that it's abandoned, I put, was the priests abandoned the dungeon shortly after it was rumored the World Diamond had been discovered at the center of the earth. That name fucking sucks, the World Diamond, but I just couldn't think of anything better in the moment. But I thought, ooh, if they're so obsessed with gemstones, what would cause them to leave this place? Maybe they found the diamond at the center of the world, where, like, the diamonds are made by pressure, and where is there more pressure than at the center of the earth, where there's all this heat? Like, what would that stone be? What kingly diamond could be rumored to exist there, that these dwarves, whose whole life purpose is to protect these gemstones, what would cause them to leave it? And then your players can show up, loot this dwarven dungeon, find a bunch of gemstones, and maybe find a rumor of like, oh, and there's an even better one in the center of the earth. Well, hey guys, how do you feel about going on a little adventure? Thought that would be really cool. Let's do two more. This dungeon was built by, I liked, this one was cool. A white dragon's enslaved dwarves who carved their master's lair into the heart of the realm's oldest and largest glacier. So at the North Pole, there's a huge spire of Isis Glacier at a crazy angle jutting up out of the glacier sheet. And the dwarves have carved their dragon's lair all the way up to the top where he could perch, and all the way down into the hollowed section of glacier ice underwater. I thought that was really, really cool. But what had it become abandoned was, it's rumored, the dwarves were rumored to have uncovered something in the ice that resulted in the death of not just the dwarves, but the dragon as well. I feel like the easy one here is, what's in the ice? It's an alien, right? That's a very common trope. It's like The Thing. Some alien spaceship crashed down into the ice and it was frozen, and the dwarves uncovered it. And maybe it's a Mind Flayer ship, maybe it's a Beholder, maybe it's just some weird, crazy alien that you come up with. But that alien has killed the dwarves? Question mark. Killed the white dragon? Question mark. Or has it, abducted it into its ship and it's doing weird experiments on it, and now there's a Mind Flayer white dragon that's flying around and freezing people and eating their brains as they're frozen. I don't know. Just like a random idea. But I thought that could be really cool. What did the dwarves find? Not underground, right? It's not the Balrog, but it's still that idea of they dug too deep, and what did they find in the ice? Maybe it's like some ancient plague, right? Like a microbial organism that's down in the ice that's been alive for millions or billions of years, and if it were to release out into the world, it could kill everything in some weird Arctic zombie plague or an alien plague. That could also be cool. And the last one I'll share, and I'll save two for the patrons. Okay, this one's really good. I kind of want to save this one, but it's just too good not to share. The dungeon was built by a plague cult, a pustulent sect of filth-praising cultists who sealed themselves within its chambers so their bodies could fester and grow, the final days plague. Or I'm not sure if that sounds better, or if I wasn't sure if I wanted to call it the final days plague or the plague of final days. but something about that one didn't seem quite right. But the idea is this cult built this dungeon and then kept themselves in it so that they would die and their bodies would just grow and rot and produce this plague that when the dungeon was inevitably opened in the future, either by maybe the original plan was the cult would reopen it in 1,000 years, or the cult knew like the prophecy proclaims that when this dungeon is opened, so shall our plague be released. And maybe that means adventurers are opening it or whatever. They don't care. They just know that at some point this dungeon will be opened and our plague will be released. But what I wrote as the reason why this dungeon like hasn't been explored yet and it's sort of been lost to time was the dungeon was so corrupting, so full of disease that it literally rotted the soil beneath it. And that's what caused this dungeon to sink deep into the earth, where it was lost for who knows how long. And it has only recently been unearthed by dwarven clerics. Maybe like people of this dwarven city have been getting sick and they don't know why. So these dwarven clerics have gone out on a mission to find the source of it, and it led them to this dungeon, but they haven't opened it, and they need to hire some adventurers to help them explore it. That was sort of my thought for that sort of adventure. But that one, specifically this idea of the ground, the earth getting sick and rotting and liquefying and the dungeon sinking down, like, ooh, that would be very cool. So those are a few Mega Dungeon Architect ideas for you. And I was kind of doing a little thinking on Mega Dungeons because I was talking about like maybe I'll do a solo Mega Dungeon crawl. I'll try and come up with one. But how do you actually come up with an inspiring theme for the dungeon? And I tried just doing keywords. That's something we've done on this channel before, where it's like, time, mana, lich, dragon, and like you just roll a d4 and it's like whichever ones you land on, that's sort of the word that inspires this entire dungeon. But for whatever reason, I don't know, it just wasn't really working for me. And so then I tried, well, maybe let's think about who built it. Who's the thing that built it? And does that help give me a little more idea, a little more juice in the tank to come up with something cool? And that worked pretty well. So maybe I'll keep trying that in the future. Instead of just going off of a one-word inspiring thing, it's let's think about the person who built it and the purpose behind it. And that will give me a lot more ammunition for the types of chambers that could exist in here. I feel like I'm giving, like, as I'm saying this, like, oh yeah, think about the person who built it and why. Whoa, like what a mind-blowing, like, idea to help you prep a Mega Dungeon. But I don't know. I guess I forgot that was a good idea. So I'm sharing it for you guys in case you'd forgotten it at all, right? But that's it for me. We did it. We got through all 3 blessed segments of today's hobby stream. We talked about some updates, talked about my favorite memories, and we got through some Mega Dungeon Architect ideas for you to use in your own world building endeavors. So that's what we're going to call it. That is it for today's hobby sermon. Hobby sermon number 2. Can you believe it? My son is 2.5 weeks old, and I've managed to do 2 of these in a row. So thank you all for attending. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Go do something cool. Go hobby for 20 minutes today. And if you would like to help support me in continuing to be able to do this, then go check out the Patreon. The tier, there's one tier. It's $3 for the Blessed Three Eyes of Vecna. And that gets you access to everything I've ever posted on the Patreon. And everything that I talk about in these streams is written up in nice lists with some pictures and things so that you can go back and reference those. It even goes up like an hour or 2 before the stream. Like today's post went up at 8. And then I started at 10. So you can go get a little sneak peek at what we're going to be talking about. So that's there for anyone who's interested. But that's all I've got. Thank you so much. And we say these things in your unholy names. Amen.